welcome. I'm your host, Muskan. Thank you for taking the time to join us today as we talk about RPA made accessible, powerful, and smarter with generative AI. You'll leave this webinar with insights on how Gen AI is a force multiplier for RPA and takes RPA to greater heights. In this webinar, you will also witness how bot development becomes so much more easier with just natural language query, and also how you can get the superhuman ability to chat with your documents. To make sure we are helping you as best as we can during the webinar, we have a questions tab where you can submit all your questions and thoughts, which is appearing on the bottom of your screen. We will answer them by the end of the session. All lines are on mute by the default settings of the webinar. To keep the session interactive, we will be launching one poll question for you to share your thoughts. There will also be a survey form appearing at the end of the webinar to collect your feedback on how we can make our discussions better for you in the future. During the end, while we address the Q&A section, we also have a form which you can fill, which will directly take you to a book a demo page in case you would require that. Also, don't worry about taking notes. We will send the session recording and deck via email within a day's time. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our speaker for today, Hemraj Sadhnani, VP of Product Engineering. Hemraj has over 30 years of experience in building scalable and resilient systems and leads the development of intelligent automation and low or no-code platforms at Datamatics. So that's all from my side. Let's get started. Over to you, Hemraj.
Thanks, Muskan, for the introductions. Hi, everyone. Good morning and good evening. So thank you for joining this session where we will be sharing how generative AI is making inroads into the RPA world and making it more accessible and more powerful to the end users. And then how Datamatics has adapted generative AI to bring that to our own ecosystem. So the topics that we'll broadly cover is the impact of generative AI on RPA, how Datamatics is leveraging it, what is the experience with generative AI powered RPA, and a couple of use cases that we'll discuss out here. So before we jump into generative AI, let's quickly look at how the RPA journey has come this far. Starting with doing things manually. The version 1, which was the attended automation, where the bots were created for tasks that were driven manually, and the automation itself was then driven manually. Tasks were performed by invoking these attended automations. We moved on to the second version, where the bots were triggered with service with alerts, triggers, events, and it was a self-service thing. Yet the bots were performing the tasks. Then came the version where machine learning and AI was leveraged. So the models, custom models that were built, taking decisions, leveraging ML models along with the bots, while the bots still remained, unattended, triggered by events. And now we are in the era where generative AI has stepped in, allowing us to bring the AI ML not just to the people who are data scientists, who are champions on the ML, but even to end users, making the RPA more thinking driven, more kind of automated and not just manual. A study from McKinsey says that 60 to 70% of employees' time will be kind of automated through these generative AI by using generative AI. There are two studies, there are two lenses that they have used to kind of make this study. One is the economic impact on the work or task that is getting done through the AI ML models versus generative AI. So AI ML has been in place, but then with generative AI, we will be able to further leverage and reduce the time that people spend on doing these tasks, and also the cases that we can solve. So with custom AI ML models, the kind of cases that people have been able to solve has been restricted to the data that they have, that the information that they have. With generative AI bringing the power of the global data, allowing us to run cases that were not possible with custom models. That combined with the labor saving will potentially reduce the time that people spend in these manual tasks from about 60 to 70%. And this obviously will have an impact on the revenue, both from the labor that was saved and by kind of automating the complex problems that we were not able to solve before generative AI has stepped in. Muskan, can you run the poll, please? This poll is just to kind of gather how far we are in the generative AI journey. Cool. I see that about 33% of you are already in the generative AI journey. It's a good number. So let's look at how generative AI is becoming a game changer in RPA. As I mentioned, with generative AI, we are now able to solve a lot more complex, AI ML problems than was possible before. Generative AI helps us leverage global data. It is much more powerful than what one would be able to build on the local data, and it helps enterprise leverage what is available in the public domain while leveraging the data that they have locally. So generative AI has the capability of using public LLMs and combined with private data, which will enable us to solve more complex problems and therefore increase the automation. Also, the time it takes to build cases or build automation using generative AI gives us more time and therefore allows us to do more automation. It makes the use of AI ML decentralized. Earlier, it was restricted to data scientists, people who had knowledge, Python, or being data scientists. With Chat GPT, with generative AI, Open AI, it is no more that we need to restrict this to data engineers, scientists. Even business users can make use of AI ML, making it decentralized. We have seen the industry opting for Copilot, which takes generative AI to the next level. So earlier, what we used to write as code, write code for automation, build automation manually. With Copilot, this becomes much faster, much easier, and we can leverage the, again, in this case, the process knowledge that exists in the world. A lot of languages have adapted Copilot, and so have we, which will demonstrate as we go forward. This allows us to create digital personal assistants. So one is leveraging it to build the bots for our end users. The other is we could leverage RP automation for ourselves, create digital personal assistants. We do that in code deployment, DevOps. So all that can be automated using generative AI much more easily. It was possible earlier, but generative AI takes it to the next level. When it comes to Datamatics, we have been in the intelligent automation space for quite some time. We have been leveraging AI ML with our own home-built product, TrueBot, in TrueCap Plus, which is an intelligent document extraction processing product that intelligently extracts data from documents. We have business intelligence. We have been using predictive analysis. We have now adapted generative AI, which helps us take these products to the next level. Leveraging generative AI, we have built Copilot in TrueBot. We allow people to build dashboards using NLP in TrueBI. We allow people to query documents in TrueCap Plus. So the whole power of generative AI is now available to the community to make use within the products. In general, with RPA, when we look at generative AI, so there are two categories where it is applicable: bot development and business case execution. So with bot development, we can do automated tasks analysis. So the tasks that are to be automated, earlier we have had to use process mining tools. We had to use some of those tools to identify what tasks can be automated. With generative AI, it brings the capability of doing this analysis with generative AI, with chat GPT, figuring out what are the tasks that we should automate, can automate, and what are the steps that would be involved in automating these tasks. This goes hand in hand with code generation assistance. So once the process has been identified, generating the bot for it, the steps that have to be written in any of the tools that you use with a co-pilot, with a code generation assistance, the steps can be built much faster and with more accuracy. We know the steps that are involved. We know the components that will be required to execute these steps, and this enables us to do the automation faster. Decision path prediction. So when we are building, if we are building a chat application for, let's say, customer service, what are the paths? What are the typical questions that would come up? What would be a typical answer? Getting these before generative AI would have involved doing a lot of analysis, figuring out what the users ask. There is no synthetic data, but then with generative AI, these things can be done, and the bot could be ready with some of these possible requirements. When it comes to executing these bots and using generative AI during execution, we could look at real-time optimization. Consider a case where stock keeping is being done and stock has to be updated in the CRM. Prior to generative AI or prior to using any ML kind of algorithm, you would typically put some default rules and logics. But with generative AI or with an ML model, you would be able to kind of deduce on runtime, predict on runtime what should be the stock keeping update that needs to be done. Similarly, with outcome forecasting, depending on the data that you have. Let's take an example of bot execution itself. If I'm running a bot orchestrator, how long a bot is taking, what is the time it takes, when does it typically run, what is the run time. So these pieces of information that are available can be used to do the forecasting within the business itself, within the execution of the bot itself. And the data that comes can be fed back to generative AI. There are ways to kind of do self-learning, continuous learning, which then further improves the quality of the predictions. Now, looking at the kind of magic that generative AI does in the bot development, I spoke about the build process. Creating the bot itself is becoming easier. You use NLP, you define the process, and the tool will generate the piece of code that is required for the bot to run. Simplifies the build process. Auto creation, workflow definition, and annotation. So while the bot is being built, you could add the steps, you could add the description of what each step is doing. When it comes to RPA TrueBot, the way we have done it, it allows you to do a smart selection of the components that will be required to perform the execution. There are 600 plus components, and at times it becomes difficult to kind of select what is a best fit. And with Copilot, with generative AI, we have kind of solved that problem with a smart selection. It will recommend what you should be using in a given scenario. We leverage public LLMs. All the public LLMs typically are available on an open AI, on an AI, OpenAI being one, Azure being another, Hugging Face being the. So you could run these LLMs in the public deployments through the bot, leverage the LLMs, and execute your use cases. For TrueBot, we internally use the OpenAI LLM to kind of do the Copilot generation. The help that has been there earlier, and then this has become a standard use case everywhere. The documentation that each one of has, there is a lot of documentation. People have to go through links. People have to kind of figure out references. It was, the information was there, but was very difficult to access. Accessing that information with the natural language is now very easy. Ask the question, your documents are compiled, and they are available. Will fetch the best answer based on the question that the user is asking. Further, with domain-specific LLMs surfacing, people addressing specific business-related problems, be it finance, be it insurance. They are available. They can be trained with custom data. They are available pre-trained models are available. So with the kind of open mechanism, the API mechanism that the industry has built, it also becomes very easy to access these domain-specific LLMs as well. So when we look at building the bot, earlier it was an LCNC platform. Now with generative AI, it is further kind of simplified. People who can write the process in natural language can define the steps in natural language. They also are now kind of capable of building the process, the bots, without taking any technical help. With the Copilot, these steps can be converted into the actual components, the physical components that are required, that would comprise the bot and enable the execution of this workflow. And the whole life cycle of the bot is enhanced. So it is not only about creation of the bot. With Gen AI Copilot, you could kind of go and document an existing bot. You could go and analyze, find defects, find things that you would have to do otherwise manually. So maintaining the bot becomes quite simple. I will run a demo for the TrueBot Copilot. So the way we have built a TrueBot is all the components that make up a process you could drag and drop, and that's how you build a process. With the introduction of generative AI, the process has become very simplified. So here we will be creating a process that takes the tickets from an Excel and will go and post those tickets into Salesforce. So the requirement is written in plain English, and when we execute it against generative AI, it generates the steps that that the bot required to kind of execute this with the components that are available. So it lists down the process, it gives you the user an opportunity to review the process, and when it is all good, you kind of click create the process, and the process gets created. And the process gets created not only with the steps, but all the steps that were specified in natural language, they come up as annotations, which kind of helps the user to keep a track of what was the process or the business process that was used to create this particular bot, while the components will perform the actual execution. Now this is when you know the process, and you know what you want to do, and you have built the process. But there will be times where people may want to perform specific steps, specific operations that they know, and that they even know how they would want to go about it, but would probably not know which component to select, which I was mentioning about the smart select. And here the Datamatics True Help comes into play. So rather than figuring out from the help documentation or from the list here, run the request onto True Help, and the help will bring out what is the best way to kind of address that particular requirement. So the advantages that this brings about from the Copilot is comprehensive help on the product. We don't need to remember the components that are there, the documentation, stuff like that. We can go and access the document and the components when we have the need. We can review and audit the existing bots that were created prior to Copilot coming into play. So it helps you analyze, find issues, find defects, and stuff like that. And while we start with one LLM, the architecture extends itself to make use of LLMs that will be available in future. When it comes to using generative or open AI within TrueBot, we have access to AI ML, where we have connectors that access OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, and then other AI ML models, be it face comparison, sentiment analysis, extracting key phrases, and whatever models that will be available in future. Those would get kind of integrated and available as standard simple components that one can use within the process without really having to understand the API and the parameters that need to be passed. From a business case perspective, obviously, if I refer back to the McKinsey report that I mentioned earlier on the call, they identified about 630 processes in the wild that generative AI can possibly automate, and sectors that are there: banking and finance. When we could do fraud detection, financial planning, risk analysis, on the supply chain routing. Whether it's routing on the parts, routing on the area codes and stuff like that, prediction on demand. Again, AI ML was there, but like I said, this makes it pretty simple and straightforward. Disruptions on the retail pricing, product recommendations, healthcare medical reports, extracting data from medical reports, analyzing medical reports. The models, some of them ready models, which are for the healthcare domain, can look at multiple reports and kind of provide a diagnosis, prognosis on what it has seen. One can generate synthetic data to train the home-built AI ML models. This is another use case. This is another demo that will be running. So we have used uh, generative AI components, the at the low level, to kind of build an RAG chat on the documents using TrueBot. RAG, for those who don't know, it's a method to sort, organize information for the large language models. It helps in reducing hallucinations. It works on a fact check, and it is specific to the domain knowledge because that's what it is looking at to provide the answers. And the way it works is you have a process that takes the documents that you may have and then pushes it into a Pinecone database. This is specific to what generative AI would need from a content perspective. And when we run a query, the based on the context, the data from this database will be retrieved, and this data will be provided to the LLM or the foundation model to get the results. So let me show you a demo using the video. So again, this is a two-word process. We have used two options, the Azure ACS and Pinecone, and this is the process. These are the steps involved in executing the demo or the bot. It goes to the Pinecone database, fetches the data, and then gives it to Azure AI to kind of get the results. It summarizes it and it writes it to the data to a HTML file. The execution will start now, and it prompts for the method. So the context is being specified. We are kind of giving a context of the consolidated revenue. So this demo is being run on the annual reports of Datamatics. We have uploaded 8 to 10 of them, and what I'm going to query is about the consolidated revenue and EBITDA. With the context given, I will give a prompt: what is the consolidated revenue and the EBITDA across 2 years, and give it across multiple years, and give it in the HTML format. Execute that. The bot gets executed, and so this is the result that it has produced on the left hand side. So you can see that it's an HTML format. It has listed the revenue and the EBITDA across the years, and without having to kind of be trained on anything. This is the report on the right hand side. This is for 2021. So I have highlighted these two rows where we will see whether the data that it kind of captured, is it the data that is there on the document. The value of 11490.5, which is 11491 out here, and you will see the EBITDA at 1422 out here, and the same for the other year. So this is created within a day. and we just use the components that were available within TrueBot, and we could just do it within a day. So when it comes to benefits of integrating Gen AI with RPA, obviously the increased productivity, faster go live. I just mentioned that I could build this bot within a day. Reduced cost of maintaining the bots. One doesn't need a specialist to kind of go and review the bots and maintain them. Reduced cost of building the bots. Obviously, with Copilot, with all these being done, it brings down the cost that goes into building the bots, and everything is using natural language. With that, we come to an end, and these are a couple of analyst coverage that we have for our products, be it Gartner, be it Peak, Zinao, and across multiple years, different recognitions that we have achieved from these key or key analysts within the enterprise. With that, we'll open the Q&A session. Over to you, Muskan.
Thank you so much, Hemraj. As you rightly said, we'll move ahead to the questions section of the webinar. And our first question is from David. If I want a more contextual demo of the product, how can that be facilitated?
For a contextual demo, David, we'll have to understand the needs. We can get into a separate discussion. We can understand the needs and how it can be then automated or done through TrueBot.
All right. Our next question is from Shelly. How do you control the RPA program? Is there a dashboard for doing so?
Yes. So what we demonstrate today is more of the generative capabilities in building and executing the bots. Obviously, it goes beyond the designing and creation. We have an orchestrator, what we call as a cockpit, TrueBot cockpit, which is an enterprise kind of orchestrator to run and control the entire RPA program. Includes scheduling, execution, governance, and a lot more. So yes, we do have an enterprise cockpit that helps you control and take control of the entire RPA program.
All right. The next question is, which version of the LLMs do you leverage for Gen AI capabilities?
So when it comes to Copilot and some of the capabilities that we have demonstrated, we are using the version 4 of Azure OpenAI. That seems to be giving us the best of the results. But we do support models, the other models that are available, whether it's 3.5 Hugging Face models or Falcon, which are available as APIs.
All right. And the last question we have for today is, could you mention something about the library of pre-built components?
So we have a library of 600 plus components that spans across multiple categories, automating Outlook 365, Excel, Azure, Salesforce, SAP. A lot of these are readily available. They can simply be kind of used to build any of the processes. We also have capability of recording, doing surface automation using recording, and then much more.
All right. I think those are the questions we have from our attendees for today. So thank you so much everyone for joining the webinar, and we hope you found the session informative and insightful. And thank you, Hemraj, for sharing your insights to our audience and attendees. If you'd like more information, or if you feel that your questions weren't answered, please feel free to reach out via email at events@datamatics.com. And keep an eye for the recording and deck, which will be available one day after the webinar, that is tomorrow. Lastly, we look forward to receiving your feedback on the survey form that will appear quickly after we end this webinar, because that's what helps us make our discussions better for you in the future. So thank you so much, everyone. See you at our next session. Bye for now. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for sharing your time with us. Thank you.